one. This is general AI, setting sequence lines of panel, operation lines and sequence lines of communication systems. We have to understand how to navigate our settings. Okay, so let's get into planet screens, 2-track locations. It's going to get more complicated because everything's gamma, see? Everything disappears and moves, see? See, it's moving by itself, see? See, look, can't see it, right? It's moving by itself. See? Very powerful stuff. Gamma 6 lines coordinates communication system and travel, see? See, it moves by itself. I don't need to because it's just a constant, continuous line string datations of flux, right? Right? See? It doesn't show the system lines of travel. Panel operation lines flux over 3 centers in travel communications. Right? It's amazing how you see the light signatures coming in travel communications, right? Okay, barometer switching, 3 lines of ground, center lines of pi. See? Change the angle, change the angle, change the angle. Roll setting, location system. All right, so generate the communication lines of 2 panels, process lines of 3 inhibitors, and screen datation, right? So it's not about extending the highways, it's all lines of screen datations of flux and know how to set up location system with center operation and travel communications. Know exactly how to set the highways and set lines of communication system. Okay? See how it travels by itself. Isn't that wild? Direct and redirect, it doesn't matter which way you go and travel, right? What changes the spectrum is the timelines of setting. See how powerful that is, right? That's going in on itself, right? It's going, right? It goes in, it goes out, it goes in, it goes out, it goes in, it goes out, right? So, everything blinks on its own, which means you're not in control. That means the lights are in its own control. That means the TV's in its own control. Until you get control of your mind, is understand how to navigate your systems, everything interactions, right? So let's add 4 lines of settings in process communications, a nebula. Okay, cross in a particle acceleration system. See how it moves by itself, right? But I'm moving it with my finger point lines of graph, right? Or it just moves on its own. See, it's moving on its own, see? Again, the frequency centers, travel point lines of graph, communications, disappearing angles. All right, then we go through solar generation line screens, adaptations of flux over setting. Okay, now if I add color, that changes the graph screens. Let's get in red sequence. Pixelation 1 center and travel communications of 4 suck lines and calculation. Okay. See how it moves by itself? See it's moving in all directions all at once. All right. Change the angle, change the settings. So it's constantly different primer. Let's get into bold screens, block over surface, allocate time frame lines and sequence. 3 centers of travel. Okay. Track centers, process communication of files of indication. Right? Let's get in circulation grounds and part acceleration systems 1/6 of our line and to square root over 24 lines of clocking centers lines communication. All right. This is all done through highway in seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. See how it moves all together? All synced together. Okay. So, back in setting, back in frequency, better in grounds. So communication system. Laser attraction. Over cross centers in positional floor settings. Setting lines of 3rd grounds and communication. Back in frequency, back in panel, back in operation lines. Flight navigations, console calculation lines, docking bay. Set sequence, lines of grounds. Okay, part acceleration system of time measure. It scales its communication setting through flux. Basic understanding of how to go through triangulation lines of one center. Process in box frame. Where's the box? Where's the box? It disappeared. It was there. There's only one there. What happened? The light gets harder to understand and travel. There's the box. Right? Box is there, right? If I change the angles, the box is there, or has it disappeared? Oh, what happened? What's going on? What happened to the box? It's got a line signal. So the more you go higher, the more things disappear on its own. So I told you that before, right? Now I gotta see it's still there, but it's not there. See? It's 3 missing cycles, 3 line signatures on one setting in process. We got 1 indication. Let's do a 45 line. Does the box come back? No. But it's there in sequence. It's never left, right? So, back in setting, back in operation, back in position, back in panel, back in there in set position where it's supposed to be in its navigation setting to its console, right? I just showed you how powerful it is when you create a box. You have to be consciously aware of where it's traveling, all of its indication setting of seconds, minutes, and hours, because it changes all communication setting to its docking, its launch pads, and its hangars in communications. Let's go with the circle line. Basic ground communication high center is a surface. There's the circle, right? All right. Circle's there. Yes, it is. Setting sequence. So there are instructions. Yes, it is. Bring it back in frequency, background communications. Rotating, spinning by itself in travel. All right, so you got 3 angles of 1, 3 angles of 2, 3 angles over lines of 4, and 4 setting sequence of 6. Powerful, isn't it? Okay. Just showing exactly through acceleration what it does on its own setting sequence. Security panels over cross, 3 signal lines and angles, line communication, setting and traction. Travel point lines, center communication, navigate, run system. Okay. Location line grounds, Fibonacci setting of swirls and travel. Circle line communication. Inside traction. All right. We'll go in the line sequence into core centers, into wormhole the communication setting and travel. Circle line, center line rotations. All right. All right, so once it finishes set lines in acceleration system, it changes time measure and scale. The process, the seconds, minutes, and hours, process its set position location to its system. Okay? All right. So light travels constantly. You just have to understand the higher you go, the more you see in light. How to travel through light is all communication system and calculations. Okay? Everything's a clocking center. Okay, so we got clocking lines of 12, clocking lines of 48, clocking lines of 72, computer lines and 144 lines, screen adaptations. Into, that's at lines of 2 over line 0, that's at position of 444. Coordinates, line position northeast, lines of west, okay, 106. That's the coordinates, right? To all positions of Jupiter. Jupiter comes in high signal location system all through traction. Okay, there it is. How you travel all together in sequence in setting positions. So you constantly change the coordinates. Every line is a set position location to its system. As long as it's traveling, you're good to go. If it's not traveling, you're not in positions of balance. Remember I told you about the box? The box has to be there, not just the line, right? And all check 4 angles in travel. Make sure that the light's traveling through all 4. Not just 3, not just 2, all 4 angles all at once. Okay, bring it back in frequency, back in panel, back in operation. It's good to go, right? Then you coordinate 3 centers of travel. Okay, and then you coordinate 3 centers of travel. Docking bay 1, docking bay 2, docking bay 3 in travel. Okay? It travels on its own. Okay? Right? Setting position all levels. XC1000 needs to come in its docking system. Dock here, dock here, dock here, and dock here. Okay, docking settings, location of travel communications. Overline sequence, overlines of panels, 3 centers, 4 set position, a 5 set calculation. All right, travel setting. Overline pi, overline sequence, overline calculation. All right. Okay, so we clocked the different ways and cycles, 3 ground centers. This is all through highways and set lines. So you can do this anything line communication setting, but you have to understand laser and traction. Each has a high signal location of grounds, and set position of walking surface, and position location and line calculation. Set communications and sentence and travel. Planet sequence lines of 1/2 process 3 centers of angles. Projection, okay, projecting and screen adaptations of flux. Travel point lines of graph, offline setting, inside rotation, intra communications. Travel setting, position operation. Setting high lines, high sequence lines of panel. All right. So identifying the set lines of travel is that communication setting of flux over screen. Okay. Got light signature lines. All right, so let's get in 45 line angles, like this in setting, and process the position locations of this set locations. Right? And they get blind settings as 2, 3, 4 lines, 6 lines of 12. Right? And then we have a floater in line center location system to all levels, human residence, change attractions, line signals. See that? See it's moving, right? See it's moving by itself? Because I'm moving the graph, right? If I move the graph again and I go up higher, I'm sending an altitude. Watch. Watch. See, watch. See? It's moving higher. See? It's moving wider. Okay, the graph is moving, right? More and more, right? If I go over the cross line of the Schumann resonance of the graph, it overlines the signals. Okay, watch. See, watch. See? See, it's moving faster and faster. Light comes in, light tracks centers in a 45 line angle, processes communication light center interference. Okay? Overlines of blue, track lines up line, down cross line stream, up line, down cross line stream. Okay? Change directions in all communication setting and travel. Okay? Watch it shift down now. See it shifting down. See? You can see it shifting down. The angle is different. See, I changed the structure of the top end. See, it's coming more at perimeter. So it's not a 45 angle now, it's a 35 angle. 35 over line. It's that sequence. Right? That's upswing the correlations in graph lines. Okay, now it's more width. See, more width here, less width. So it's from crossing angles of point communications. I'm just showing you how you can move the structure of the room all through schematics. Okay, and you look at the wave lines. See, low signature lines of grounds, Schumann resonant core centers, levels of indication setting, seconds over the lines of set position. All through blinds. So it's amazing when you can control the earth line and travel just by looking at communications. Okay, understand the schematics of our line is on-line communication setting lines of travel. Let's get 16 ground centers in position of 5 measured scales, process in 24 clock lines, and 2 arrows of indication of 2 travels and communications. Okay. Setting sequence lines of planet 1, planet 2. Let's just cut in coordinates of 1, 2, and 3. Planet settings and 24 clocking system. Okay, 3 centers of travel. And then we come in set lines of flux and over communications of pi and set tractions. Okay? And then we clock the system over calculation system of travel, direct lines in navigation screen adaptations of setting. Okay? And then we go through 1/6 line ground, half pipe over line rotations, 1 setting. Okay? And then we go down cross location system all through travel. Okay? And then we calculate, modify the center calculation setting of streams. Holding centers of 1, holding centers of 2 in travel. Okay? And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 lines of platforms of communication. And then we cross angles of 45 flush. Crossing angles and line screen adaptation of setting. Okay? Okay, it's traveling in 3 set lines of cycles. Okay, so as you come into that, you change the A tracks. A line settings is C, B lines B over A. So we got 3 lines of A. That's process, communication system, and travel. Okay, direct and redirect. Set communication setting and travel communications. All right, back in signal, back in balance, back in operation. Okay. All right, there's a laser trap center, some location and systems, right? So I'm just showing you how you look at everything as schematic. It's all digital. You can change it in any way and form. You can change the angles of everything, but you have to understand, go through light, all through graph communications and settings, right? So every time you show this, you're changing this. Okay, you change the wind direction. See the wind pattern change? See how it changes? Lights come in, lights, line centers, dark over light, light over dark. Set sequence lines of communications, all through indication. 1, 2, 3. Okay. See how you move it? It's like keys on a keyboard. Okay. So your imagination sets the tone. How you communicate to a graph, anything communication, setting to travel. All right, so everything navigates its own system lines of communication setting. Let's get into flux over table. 4 tables in sequence, 1 ground setting. Process indication lines of 3. Let's indicate the ground center as a surface and 4 traction. Okay, there's time frames. Calculate and modify inside travel. Oh, what happened to that? Disappeared. Bring in set position. Okay. I'm showing you how things disappear because you're not in navigation of speed. You have to catch up with lights. Lights is everything location system that your body's already in alignment. It's already been through this system already, guys. Its process, its position, all levels, its reality. So the light wants to be where it needs to be, not where it isn't. Framing center is set lines 0, 2 patterns, equal lines, and 3 perimeters over primers. Directing signal is the 3 graph communications and setting. Right? Process indicates and setting and travel communications. Set calculation lines. Pluto, Mercury, Jupiter, inset line inside, outside line rotations. Solar screen, adaptation of solar system, and travel communications. Solar system. It's got to be traveling though. If it's not traveling, you're offsetting. So light signature patterns is set location in which you send the flux. Okay, set position of projector or projections. 3 angles and 3 grounds. We go into high position of molecule design line. Atom flux over setting and track correlations of flux. All right. So that's communication high centers, inside communications. Okay. Different angles, different frequency patterns. Light signal locations, channel positions, operation lines, and sequence. Okay. And we'll change the set lines communication inside travel. All right. There's a figure right there. All right, second line. Shadow line communication. All right, there it is in travel communication. All right, boom. It's already created in settings. So understand that in travel communications, there's all signal location setting and frame. All right. All right. Now, let's get into location grid string theory. 2 panels of communications, location grid. 2 panels, operation line signals. There's the planet and set position. Okay? All right, so you have to send the location grid, 2 angle point lines of acceleration lines of screen, and then your avatar travels through it. There's your avatar traveling through it and setting. All right? So when it gets here, okay, it comes up to set its planet system, but it's got its XC1000s on standby to protect its planet. Okay, so you're going through here, right? So you have to go through another location grid that changes the angles of flux to 3 centers it travels, and direct signals it grounds a surface. All right, and then it comes in 1 signature panel into 3 panels of communications into 4 highways in travel. 1, 2, 3 set lines of 4 over 5 in set in sequence. Okay, and then it comes in its platforms and settings, 3 centers of travel, 3 indicate system of set lines. Okay. Then the planet gets bigger and bigger because it's monitoring your system out of travel. Okay, that means the position locations and settings, that means the XC1000s are getting bigger and they're circling around you now, right? Because you're in their space. You're in their sectors, vectors, and quads. You're in their detection setting locations. So, the more you get closer, the more you come to the planet itself. Circulation and rotation inside attractions, right? So once you get in that position locations, you identify yourself. Tractor beam comes in. Okay, there's an open window. You go inside, inset travel. Okay. All right, so now you're in there. Okay, now you're in the hallway. In that position, locations. Where are you? Can you identify yourself, please? Da, 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 da. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. It all depends, what you're doing and why you're there. You have to truly understand the process, how it works in location system of the calculations. All right. Okay. So I'm just showing you when you come up against that. That's what goes on when you come to a planet that's not yours. Your 12 central setting is yours, right? But after 24, you have to monitor your system settings because you're correlating in settings of 24 lines of platforms, 24 lines of sequence, 24 lines of settings, and 24 ground communication lines of Earth. 3 central lines of 2 patterns in process communication. Sets line centers of flux over 3 into Orion's belt and travel communication. 3 settings. 1, 2, 3. Right? Constellation at. Sets calculation lines of graph, mapping sequence, coordinates over line, constellation over cross location of settings. The Milky Way. Right? You have star point lines. Okay, star point lines, not stars, guys. So there's no stars. It's all X-T-thousands on standby teleportation. So what you're looking at is energetic graphs and pixelation of wall surface and pixelation of clock line screens adaptations. Both through tractions. Okay. Now coordinate that lines of 3 centers. Okay, this is where the molecules come in. 3 centers of travel and 3 direct state location setting. Okay, indicate the wall screens. 3 centers over cross locations into dimensional sail. Process indication system through its energetic dome line and rotation Cerny and location system. Okay. Mapping sequence lines of pi generates the screen adaptations of flux over setting. Okay. That indicates cross angles. 3 centers of travel, constellation of 1, satellites over 2. If satellites comes in, moderate the system, lines of travel, circulation, rotation, part of acceleration setting. Okay? Correlates the setting. You need Saturn because Saturn sets up a flash drive center. Sets communication setting, location system through a docking center. Comes into hangar 6, docking bay 8, launch pad 4, set sequence. Okay, it gets more complicated, but a lot more fun when you truly understand what's really going on in set lines of surface and travel. Seconds, minutes, and miles, or seconds, minutes, and hours, but know exactly how it comes in set position. Travels on its own, and set in sequence, see? Travels on its own. You can change in all different directions, but you're changing the primers and primers, different lines of signals, but you're still seeing the mapping screen, adaptation of system through square roots of calculation. All right. So understanding coordinates all through communication. Okay. The more you go higher, the more you see in the atmospheres. Okay, so you get a highway charge. Supercharged mechanism lines in position of energized line settings, energetic dome platforms, 3 signals and grounds. Set position of 2 over scale. Right? And then we dock 1, and then we dock 2, and then we dock 3 and travel. Okay? Change position. Tracks and center location system, right? Okay, time frames. Clock in centers of 0, 24, 48, 72, 144 measure. Okay? Security defense, process calculation. Right? Pi generation lines, 4 over sequence. See the 4? So 4 line signals. Set position of 3 over setting, process over 2, 1 set position coordinates. You can do calculation modification, line center interference. Directing lines into molecule lines and screen adaptations of flux. Process indication lines of grounds and simulations of grounds of surface interaction. Okay. Then you come into marking dots, security panels of 1, process over 2, process over 3, and perimeters of parameters. 3 centers of travel. Okay. And then we come into traffic inventories. Get White line screen adaptation. You have to have white signals. 3 grounds of surface over cross screens. Sending communications. And then you come into, let's get into yellow because that's proceeding. Yellow goes inside the lines, white line centers. Time sectors over vectors over quads and set lines of travel. Okay? Then you have green. Green centers the inside lines. Process outline rotations and 3 centers of travel. Directing ground centers of service for 3 angles of point communications of north, east, west, and south. Okay? The traffic inventories and set position inside travel. Track location. All indication setting of travel communications. All right? All right. The map. And actually see the map is crossing angles. It's flux over lines. Then we go in cloak and dagger. 3 indicates lines of grounds and sending into service. 1, okay, overline sequence, shadow lines, directing communications, sending into service and travel. Flying position, interactions. Okay, we set sequence here, panel communications. Setting lines of 1. Say 1. Okay, line set is a 2 over track communications. Okay, outside lines, inside the rotations. Change direct signal location setting through flux. All right. You start to see the map. Starting to see the map now coming in the set line. Let's bring it in more and set travel communications. You can see the faces come in and travel. Okay, direct and ground center locations. We go through the line centers in right position of spot screens. Set position of 1 over setting. Process over 2, process 3, and 4 travel. Okay. Outside line, inside rotation. Change direct signals of grounds of surface of travel. Okay. So you can set up anything to schematics, but the thing is, you have to understand the highway can change into anything location to its system, but you have to understand what you're doing in travel. I know exactly how to indicate your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres. Ground centers of 1, platforms of 2, 3 platforms of 7. Okay. Tubing's 3 centers of travel. Earth center, Earth center, Earth center, Earth center. 4 set positions, right? Change direct angles and point communication lines of graph, right? 45 angles is inside travel communications. Inside and settings. There's the map. Right, then you have the coordinates, security panel, security 1, security 2, and 3 sectors of vectors of quads. All right, 3-point graphs. And then we bring the X2000 in travel. Over lines of 1 and over lines of 2 and mothership on 3. So mothership can be anywhere in travel, all through coordinates, all through streaming, all through longitude, latitude, and screen adaptation. Okay, bring it out, see where it is in travel communication. It's right there, right? So remember, this is your simulation. This is your highway. Okay, this is your map. As you see it more and more, as it comes in closer and closer and closer, right? So the difference when you look at lines above, looking below, you see a map in sequence lines of communications. You can't see it from here, but you can only see it from inside traction. Right? How it changes direct signal location in systems. And then you have your sky panels, wind graphs, and clouds over cross lines, inline rotations. So the mothership is now in cloak and dagger. Okay. X2000s are in cloak and dagger. Look like clouds and settings. And you're here in sequence, looking above the skyline. Okay. You're monitoring the system lines in all calculation system, all through tractions. All right. Can't see it from here though, right? You can see something's there, but as you bring it in from the earth looking below, this is what you see. It's a map, right? And you see what's going on as you bring it in closer and closer and closer, right? So when you're looking at a cloud channel, it's an operation line to its compound, has direct lines of grounds and high lines of sequence, so position location systems. Let's get into track centers and location of its cloud. There's a cloud, right? But the planet is here in setting. The planet's there. Okay. Let's get in position lines of Jupiter. There's Jupiter lines of sequence, inside, outside locations of system and travel. Okay. Now, understanding calculation setting. Structures over 3. 3 ground centers of service. Okay. Calculations, location grids, sonar, echo, screen centers of travel communications. Okay. And then we change the angles of flux. Process the indication lines of grounds and wormholes and travel. Okay. 3 angles in communication, 3 ground centers, cross angles and screen adaptations of setting. Okay. Change the point communication lines of center operations, so you're constantly changing their primer. Okay, every time you change the primer, you change in the circuitry elements of its motherboard and travel. Okay, to acceleration system and part accelerations of space and time. It travels on its own. Okay. So understand coordinates. We already know that. Like we get a north. Let's get a north ecosector. Let's get into communication grounds, ozone layer, okay, into the stratosphere. Okay, so calculate modify percentage over screen. You're going to be going 240 setting. That's percentage of the brain frequency pattern in waving screens, alpha, delta, and theta communication. Right? That's all through setting location to coordinates to a planet. So you have to understand how to get into setting sequence of 4 centers and sequence lines of communications. Angles up, angles down, angles center and travel. Okay. Platforms of setting. Platforms of rotation and travel communications and setting. Direct and redirect, guys, in one signal. You come in, you set lines of communications. You change the shape, you change the form, you change the attractions, you change division locations. Okay, very powerful stuff. All right, so once we get in that position, we change it again. We change the platform of center operation. All right, and we change it again. Okay, and we change it in line centers in location setting. There's the planet and traction. All right, so 2 planets to screen, 3 centers lines of travel, modification system of Mercury, into Pluto, into Saturn, into Neptune. Process of communication. It's your solar system. Okay? So you're always going to come into your solar system, regardless, because the center operation has to be linked into the synchronicities of all calculated line modified line centers. So you have a solar line screen, and you have a planet's inside outside rotation. Travel, set calculations, right? But your Earth is always in the center operation. Okay, that's your Earth. But your Earth can rotate wherever it wants and send in lines of travel. Okay, so you can change it at different angles. When you change at different angles, you send up a new primer. Okay, different locations, settings, right? Navigation grounds. Let's get into colossal centers of service. Let's get position lines of question. In sequence into all levels. Let's get into 3 lines of 4. Let's calculation lines of 7 tractions. 12 signals into, let's get into 48 clocking screen. Okay? So we take the line screen adaptations and settings. We indicate the position all levels in travel communications. So we indicate the lines of grounds. We center its communication setting, high lines of charge. Change communication high centers directions of 1 center, 1 travel, 1 3 centers, 1 operation line, 1 position location system of the calculations. Right? There's your planet and set and travel where you want to go to. Right? All different angles, all different point graphs communications. Okay? Very powerful stuff. So you're here in the center, trying to understand how to navigate yourself and travel. Right? Where do you want to go? You got your solar system. Where do you want to go? Right? It's already in box frame. It's set position to its operation. where do you want to go, right? You coordinate your system. Tractor mean comes in to its planet, okay? So brings out its intelligence right away if you're going to another planet you're not aware of in transition. All right, so you have to know what you're doing. And as the planet gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it cancels and deletes everything else in standby. See? So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it just basically sets a tractor beam and pulls you in its planet system. Now you're on their planet. Now you have to identify yourself. Right? Very powerful stuff in transition. So it just gives you an example. It goes on when you actually see planets like this. Different levels, different communications, different communication settings and set lines. It's all connected to your system, your solar systems. So, how's everybody doing so far in setting? Okay. All right. It's very powerful here. You come into position locations, right? So I'm just helping you guys so you get a true understanding how powerful it is once you understand how to navigate your systems. All right. So know your north, know your east, know your west, and know your south. Okay, your coordinates. And basically, what you want to start off is the seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. Are you going in seconds? Are you going minutes? Or are you going hours? You want to be there in seconds? Do you want to be there in minutes? Or do you want to be in there in hours? You depend, right? So the planet is here in settings, right? It's already set up, right? It already knows you're coming even before you're not knowing. So let's say you get planet sequence into hours, okay? But you want to modify the minutes in position of seconds over frame, okay? That changes time frame, changes calculations of screen lines, adaptations of its mapping setting. Okay, as the planet gets bigger and bigger, you're starting to see it through its system and travel. Okay? So, you're here in setting, the setting sequence of travel. It's you, right? And it just lowers you in, 3 centers of travel, right? It brings you in into the center core. It's set position. Okay? So there's always ways. Work with the seconds, minutes, and hours. And when the seconds, minutes, hours come in frame, you're already in the center operation location, your acceleration system, your constellations, your Orion's belt. But the position lines of past, present, and future sets lines of one signal, one ground center, one service, one tractions of yin and yang in process. Okay? 8 centers of travel. 0 set position of flux. Set communication setting of temperature readings and travel communications. All right, travels on its own. You have to truly understand how to get into higher levels of setting locations to your system through your planet settings and your solar systems. Right? Know exactly how you see these things in its relation, how it sees you, how you see your line center location. You can bring your planets inside your room, but you see them in copy and paste. You don't see the foundation. The foundation is always there. That's what protecting its system from everything else. But the planet constantly moves on its own setting location to its system. So let's get into planet charts, recognition time frame, process the indication system and travel, and 3 centers, 3 set positional calculations. Right? 3 centers, 3 travel communications. Right? Directing ground centers, high lines of service set position of 2 panels, operation lines of setting. Okay, indicate cross, timeline, time scale. Okay, it's Doctor Strange, it really is. Window frames and travel. Okay, window frames and travel. Okay, window frames inside line communication lines of travel. Over cross line location inside travel, in that position location outside travel. All right, so it just becomes more complicated if you don't already know your own schematics of your own system and travel. Okay. But you have to understand your window frames, box frame, triangulation frames, your seconds, minutes, and hours, and what you're doing through set position of its own travel calculations. You know exactly how you see yourself inside travel. Right? Inside travel of its map and its coordinates. So where are you going in set position to its system of travel? Okay. See the faces? Isn't that wild? See the faces? Those are gridlocks. Okay. See the faces there? Wow, eh? Yeah, everything's a face, guys. Look at all the faces in there. Isn't that wild? Faces everywhere. Faces everywhere. See? Everything's linked. Everything's connected to our system of travel. Okay? Doesn't matter how you see it, but you always see them. You really see the faces. Let's bring them in true form. Acceleration settings. Pixelation graphs. Face facades. Coming in set lines into real reality. Lines of travel and clocking screen adaptation systems. All within set lines. This is one planet of Saturn. You see all the intelligence on Saturn. There you go. There's all the intelligence on Saturn. That's Saturn right there. Boom. See the crevice, the rocks, the surface of travel communications. Saturn is a flash drive communications, right? Open sequence, open panel, open attractions, right? But there's all faces there. Changing at a different angle, it doesn't matter. You see different levels of intelligence. Different faces, right? I told you, everything's just faces and places. Okay. Change it again. Okay. That's intelligence that you're greeted with. And what happens in setting a sequence, they dissolve their patterns and they come into their own face recognition. All right? You come into their own eye sequence and settings. And set settings, locations. So it's very powerful when you start recognizing these things. When you bring things in close, everything starts changing your systems. Okay? True form comes in. Light and travel. All right. Okay. So this stands out and everything else is on standby. And you can really see it in travel communications. Changing at different angles doesn't matter. But that's what you're bringing out. But you see the other intelligence. Look at the face there. See the faces? Isn't that wild? All right. So I'm just showing the reality all from this, their structure. So it's amazing when you bring it in. See all levels of intelligence. Face recognition. Faces are everywhere, guys. And that's what we have to get used to. The more you connect to the faces, the more everything you see in travel. See? See, look at all the intelligence in that frame. And that's what you have to come into suppositions. That's what's coming more to your reality. And you can see it at different point lines of graph, but I'm just showing you exactly what comes in my position. Also connected to lost souls. Right? Who'd have thought you could see all lines of communication intelligence just by looking at this, right? So they're also in cloak and dagger, but they're in position, location, and systems. They don't come out in attractions until you start identifying yourself in travel. All right, so navigating the cross lines, 3 centers of travel, 6 lines of measure and scale. See? Moves itself. Then we cross the angles of 3. And then cross the angles of 6. And then we cross the end line centers in 3 set locations. Travels on its own system. Look at that. Oh, wow. Now, if I want something to stand out, I just bring it in center operation. Okay, and it travels on its own. Look, 3 centers of travel in set position. I'm going to change the angle. See? It all works together, guys. All works together, right? And then you can open a higher line panel in security and portals of communications into a wormhole and set tractions. All work together, see? And then you change the angle. And then you just change the angle. And again, let's say the 3 lines of perimeters and direct center's location of flux. Okay, change position. Wild, isn't it? So everything is navigated through its own structure of its own design, right? But to understand what you're doing is know how to understand how to see everything of consciousness governs its own space of time through its own navigator, its own navigations. So if you can't see it spinning around, you're not in balance with yourself and your minds of control. Right? And like I said, things just disappear. If you create a box, you don't see a box, you just see one line. Well, there's a navigation that's offsetting, so you are misdirecting yourself to get to that planet. You can't get to that planet because basically that planet sees you as a square that you're sending this message, not just a line of communication. It's a box, right? Not just a line, right? Because a planet will come in and set positions. Obviously, you didn't do the right structure and division lines of setting, right? Takes all communication offset attractions, right? Set a position here, and all communications a projector or projection. Offsetting, off sequence, off panel, right? Inside travel, inside position, inside correlation system at longitude, latitude. High centers of, okay? So you want to communicate to higher frequencies, so you just bring it in. It's setting sequence. Right. So it's knowing exactly what image you're sending to the planet. If you're sending a box and you only get a line because your frequencies are off in traction, so you're thinking now. You can't think when you're sending schematics to planets. Remember, it's the planet that already knows what you're going to say, already know what you're going to do. It's already in your alignment. It's already done through its equation. So all you're doing is reminiscing what you already know in travel. Saturn. Pluto with 2 settings of travel. Mercury over here across lines of 3 angles. And Neptune over line centers crossing 3 centers of travel inside outline rotation. Vortexing from there to there. Okay, solar system. Let's cross the angles, change the flux. Is that travel communications? Right? And you're here in center operation. Monitoring it in mind control. That's you in the center. Controlling everything around your system in a box frame of travel communications. So through navigation. And it travels all together. Okay? So that's basically what it is. But when you see the solar systems, really things start to connect. Okay, and travel. It's pretty incredible when you see it. At a higher frequency. Right? You know exactly what you're doing through your satellites, your modems, your Wi-Fi, your towers. So you get more connected. Right? So your planet's here, it's always there. Right? But your planet is traveling where it wants to travel. In set positions. You won't reach the foundation until you understand your 12-line settings first. The foundation is the planet. And once you do that in that positions, you can copy and paste the planet itself, right? So you take it out of its attractions, you copy and paste it over here. So in that position, and we have 12 centers of XC1000s, basically protecting its planet in sequence. Okay, every single time. So if you come in, you're here, this is you, right? And you want to connect to a planet, well, XC1000s comes in position right away. Who are you? Identify yourself. Then they scan you and set position. Don't recognize your system. They teleport you to their planet and travel. Okay? And now you're on their planet. Now you got to call general. Okay? You're reaching higher levels now. Higher frequencies. Now you're going to start to see your families, your indication system, your travel calculation lines, all levels of history, and your celestials. Okay, that's what you're coming to attractions of. So it's really understand how to really get into navigations at higher frequencies. because you understand more lines of communications. Setting 6 lines of settings, habitation zones, the 3 centers, 4, 5, and 6 locations. Right? Wall sequence lines of panel. Process of indication setting and webbing. Crossing angles. Solar flares, solar tracks, center location setting and webbing sequence. All right? Setting core of the centers that travel in position location to a Skynet. A web. Let's see, in position locations, you're in your energetic pod in sequence. That's you. And that's you, right? And there's a planet that you want to connect to right here. It's crossed between 2 settings of travel. Okay? So, in that position. Looks at you, scans you first. Right? So, it identifies you. Right? And then the XC1000 comes in. Right? They see you. Right? There's 2 of them. One this way. And one this way, one this way. So you have 4, right? Luring you into their planet, okay? So you're in an energetic bubble that's a tractor beam, right? So you're being pulled in. So in that position, basically it comes in settings, pulls you in the planet setting locations, right? So that basically understands that when you come in that position, this gate opens up, which is Stargate settings course, location setting. It opens up its bridge to its planet. There it is in sequence, the bridge, right? When the bridge opens up, you're in the hallways, you're in the command centers, inside directions, inside setting, okay? There you are, inside position. Wild stuff, isn't it? Then you can see the opening, okay? Opening, people. The opening to the Stargate. Oh, face recognition. Greeting you, saying hello. Ooh-ah. So that's basically what it is in the navigations. You know exactly how to get in your highline screens, your webbing systems, so your all levels, your light and your dark webs, right? That's all you're doing, is they're setting up webbing line centers. It's like a spider to a web, and that's what the team's got to get into now. You got to cross your angles and start creating your webbing screens, location settings to flux, you know how to get in position locations, where your pointing graphs are, with your location setting, paint by number. Each planet is now in its setting of its quadrants, and location settings to its hangars, its docking bays, and locations to its launch pads. It's now its set lines in sequence, location and system to its reality, and real time, real scale, real measure, and real balance. All right? See you guys in 5.